There's no stopping the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast as we make our way through the Batman era B-sides. On this episode, we'll be covering the Batdance B-side, 200 Balloons. And joining me again is Angel Monique. Welcome back to the show, Angel.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Absolutely. I always love having you on to offer your perspective on Prince songs. 200 Balloons is the song you agreed to talk to me about today. A B-side from Batman. So I asked this of all of my Batman era guests. Do you have any specific memories of this era? Anything that you want to share with the listeners about Batman? When did you hear this song for the first time too?
I don't remember when I first heard this song. Batman is one of my favorite movies. And every time I come on here, you make me age myself, which is okay because I don't mind being my age. But I remember when this movie premiered in 1989. I was there premiere night. And I was with a cousin. We stood in line for tickets at like a 9:00 showing. They sold out while we're in line, so we decided we'll stay for the midnight showing. And I remember wearing this yellow sundress with a white Batman t-shirt underneath it that I had just grabbed out of Dillard's on the way to the movie theater because the Batman symbol glowed in the dark. It was like a Joe Boxer limited edition t-shirt. And we really only went just because Prince was doing the soundtrack. And I wound up really loving the movie. And I wouldn't let her leave until every credit had rolled by and the lights came on, because I wanted to hear every bit of it.
Yep. Especially since, Scandalous was in the closing credits. You got to make it all the way through that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like everybody was getting up and leaving, and I was like, no. We're here until the lights come up. We have to hear every bit of it. So that is my Batman story. Premiere night. I think I was 15, 16 then. Maybe probably 16, right just after I made 16. Right around then. So yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see Batman premiere night, but I definitely saw it in theaters that summer. Just like, there's very, very many of us. I think most of us who were teenagers in 1989 would have made some point of watching that movie if we were, capable of doing so, or close enough to a theater showing it. Okay, cool. So 200 Balloons. You don't have really any memories of hearing the song for the first side.
I can't remember.
Maybe the hits and B-sides?
I'm going to go with that's probably it, because it certainly wasn't a radio situation.
Yeah.
So probably when we got the CD.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was mine.
When I first heard it, yeah.
But as the B-side to the biggest commercial successful single from the Batman album, which was Batdance, of course, I think there was plenty of folks who maybe were still buying singles at that time. Not necessarily recording songs off the radio, but going out and either buying the cassette single, potentially buying the CD single, or even buying the vinyl single. There were like 3 ways that you could own this single back in 1989. And if they went out and made a point of purchasing the single, they would have gotten 200 Balloons as the B-side. And 200 Balloons is kind of an interesting song because, it was intended actually to be in the film. Like Prince wrote the song for the film. It wasn't a song pulled from the vault and repurposed. It was written and recorded, in early 1989 after he had already been commissioned to start recording songs for Batman.
Yeah.
And this song was intended to fill a spot in the film where the Joker is, having his balloon parade down the streets of Gotham City. And he's got his big balloons and he's dancing with his henchmen, but then he's throwing money out. Of course, then the balloons later are used to release poisonous gas.
Right.
On the unsuspecting residents and parade goers. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of very literal interpretation of that scene by calling the song 200 Balloons when it's a balloon-filled parade scene, right? I mean, that's kind of how I interpret it.
Yeah. And I remember, if I recall correctly, Tim Burton didn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't care for 200 Balloons. So that's
yeah,
how we
just
wound
didn't think
up
it
getting,
didn't fit.
Yeah. So we wound up getting Trust instead.
Yep. So the way I understand it is that the filming was done using a track that was just kind of a filler, which was a Prince song. I think they used Baby I'm a Star. And from there, then, the intention was to kind of replace that song with something newer. And 200 Balloons was what Prince came up with. But now when I hear the two songs, 200 Balloons versus Trust, which ended up going in that scene instead, I think I do like Trust better for the scene than 200 Balloons personally, even though the literal naming and the lyrics used in the song don't fit quite as nicely as they did if it was 200 Balloons. But for whatever reason, the music, I think, works better.
Yeah, I think musically, it definitely works better.
Yeah.
Definitely so.
So that was an example of Prince taking some constructive criticism and applying it. didn't always just basically say, it's my way or the highway, right?
Yeah.
Not in this case.
A couple of times.
Every once in a while, he shows the capability of taking constructive criticism and working with it. I mean, and there's probably others. I'm being sarcastic, but he was kind of known to be headstrong though as well.
Yeah. The song was a great one. I mean, by itself, aside from all of that, I mean, the song is attached to Miles Davis, so you know what I mean. Like, it's not a throwaway, certainly.
Right.
Yeah. So it still redeems itself.
The song has like a more of a rock feel to it for me. I mean, there's danceable elements to it, but it seems like more of a rock song than Trust, which was more of a dance pop song. Trust seems more fun. This seems a little maybe more darker, even though it's not really a dark song, but it just feels darker to me than Trust.
Yeah, musically, I think so, as opposed to the party and, what we get from Trust. I agree.
Yeah. And Prince's voice at the very beginning of the song, so you get like this hard driving drum machine beat that goes throughout the song. It's kind of like lays the basis, the foundation for the track. And the reference to in the title 200 Balloons is kind of alluded to already, reference to the scene in Batman with Joker bringing in the balloons. But then the first lines that we hear in the song is Prince singing, "Who gonna stop 200 balloons? Nobody. Let's do it." But he does that in some sort of like manipulated vocal approach. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a spoken word intro, but it's not Prince's normal speaking voice. It's definitely manipulated somehow. It's a little odd. It's a little strange sounding, like more robotic. It's got like a more of a lower, sinister sounding tone to it to me, I guess.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Less human, which I guess could fit if you're thinking of the song being used over a scene that ultimately leads to death and destruction, and mayhem. It starts off very fun, the scene does, but as we know from anybody who's familiar with the movie, that's not how it ends.
Definitely.
Yeah, and just the chaos of throwing all the money around and people basically losing their minds and being human beings, which are, greedy, I guess is the right word to use there. Gotham's
Definitely.
greed.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of Mardi Gras a little bit.
Yeah. Yes, that
Very
would be
an
apt analogy considering where you live, right?
Yes.
You would think of that. Yeah, parades and Mardi Gras go hand in hand for sure.
I mean, if you don't have those, do you really ever have Carnival?
Yeah, exactly. So anything else about that little intro? I mean, it's essentially the phrase that you kind of remember. At least that's the phrase I remember most about the song. Who's going to stop 200 balloons? Nobody. Let's do it.
That let's do it all the way through there.
Yeah, let's do it. And that sample of Let's Do It was also then pulled and lifted for Batdance on the flip side, on the A side. So it's kind of cool that you get the Let's Do It sample from the B side on the A side. I thought it was kind of a neat little trick that Prince pulled on us there.
Yeah.
All right. So then moving on to the actual lyrics of the song. Prince in the first verse says, 25 policemen all in a row. Can't stop the party people. Go, go, go. If you can't beat them, join them. Baby, say so. It's party time, everybody. Come on, let's go. Fly with me, 200 balloons. Okay, so the first line with the 25 policemen, I immediately start thinking of the Gotham police, and just maybe... Again, like this was written for the movie, so I really take a lot of these lines literally, where maybe some people don't, especially with the lyrics and songs that were repurposed. But songs that were written explicitly for a scene in the film seem to be logically more likely to have literal connections to the film. I mean, do you kind of agree with that, or?
I agree. Especially when there are samples pulled from lines of the movie pulled the samples. I don't know how it can be, I mean, I respect the way that everybody sees it, but I don't know how it can be taken in any way other than literal.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, it's the easiest answer, easiest conclusion one can make is jumping immediately to where does this fit in the movie and how do these lyrics match up with the scene that he was writing it for.
Yeah.
And then the line, the party can't stop the party people. Again, I just think of the crowd around, the parade. And, you can consider them party people. Parades are parties, right? So
absolutely.
And going back to your Mardi Gras comments, I mean, that's a party and it's also incorporates parades. So they kind of are the same thing, synonymous here in this case.
Absolutely.
I don't really know what to make of, like if you can't beat them, join them, baby, say so. I don't know. I mean, is it basically just saying, if you can't beat them, join them, meaning like grabbing at the money potentially?
Yeah.
Like
if
the
you're
chaos
a part of the
around
crowd.
that.
Yeah. If you're in that crowd, you're either going to move with the crowd or, it's interesting. I hadn't really made the connection of Mardi Gras until just now, but it is interesting that when the crowd moves, you move. Otherwise, you're, run over pretty much. So that makes sense to me. If everybody is grabbing for the money, when they're tossing the money, if you are not in that in some way, then you're pretty much just kind of mowed over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's the same as grabbing, catching beads or whatever is coming off of a float. Especially if you're in the front of the crowd, if you're not moving with those that are pushing behind you, then you are pretty much run over.
Right. So if you can't beat them, meaning like you can't
join them.
you can't stop the push, the onslaught of humanity pushing against you, then you better just move with them, aka join them. So absolutely. For your own safety, if nothing else.
Right.
Yeah, and then again, he just says, come on, let's go, fly with me, 200 balloons. And I haven't mentioned it yet, but in that scene, the float that the Joker is on has the number 200 on it.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this is a bit, I just like, the literal connections are just, hitting us over the head like a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
200 balloons, there's a 200 on the float, there's balloons in the parade. Come fly with me. Well, balloons fly. I mean, it's just so literal. It's like almost like if we tried to dig deeper, it would almost seem like we were trying too hard.
Definitely.
Like we were trying to pull something out of nothing. It would be,
be pretty fake deep at that point.
Right. Yeah, we could. Oh, balloons represent, society's the drug trade in society in the 80s. Everybody was high as a balloon, or high as a kite. I that's a stretch. That's
money,
a stretch.
capitalism.
Right? I mean, we can make connections that aren't really there, or even if they were, like if Tim Burton, of course, was the director of this film. I don't know if he wrote the script or not.
Yeah.
But regardless, this is Prince had an assignment. And I've said this before. He had an assignment. He was given an assignment. He's rarely given assignments that are coming from external sources. Usually, all of his assignments seem to be, his internal pulls, what he wants to do. This is a rare case where he was given an external assignment to complete a task, and and he's like, here, soundtrack this scene. Sure.
Like, okay.
This is what I got. This is what I got. It's a song about the balloons, man. It's a song about balloons and parties.
Yeah, pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward. So the next verse, there's, of course, we've already mentioned, there's the Let's Do It samples going throughout. So if you hear me say that, it's just a more prominent placement of that Let's Do It. Blowing down the city, colder than ice. I think you better love me, because I'm really kind of nice. If you do me once, girl, you have to do me twice. Wave your hand if you want a party tonight. Come on, everybody. 200 balloons. Now, the question I've always, not always, but because I rarely ever thought of the song very deeply as I am right now. But now I see the term colder than ice. So I'm assuming, again, that's the more colloquial slang version of the word cold as ice. Kind of probably as somebody who's kind of cool.
Yeah. Badass.
Badass, cool, hip. Some of the common terms that are used to define what cool is when it's used in that slang version. Don't really think it has anything to do with the temperature.
No.
Blowing down the city colder than ice. I think you better love me because I'm really kind of nice. So that's just a really simple rhyme. I think he's just filling lines here potentially. Filling the pattern for his verses. Because there's really not much love going on in this scene. It's not
definitely
really,
not. Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing that implies any romantic notions going on in the scene at all. So that just feels like kind of a filler. You have to do me twice. If you do me once, girl, you have to do me twice. So again, we're just talking like Prince putting stuff in there that he could probably write in his sleep, like those kinds of lines. I feel like that's just Prince 101.
Definitely. And it, I think it kind of goes back to being colder than ice, because if a guy felt that way about himself, or anyone felt that way about themselves, then these are lines that could easily be said. This is believing in myself. These lines come off as, this feeling good about yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So even like I skipped past it, but using the word nice here is also likely the slang version of nice, like being, very good at something or skilled at something. Like I'm nice in this. Not like I have, a positive
like
personality.
I'm a really nice, a great person, right?
You love me because I'm really kind of nice. Not because I don't necessarily take that to mean because I'm like a generous person.
Right. Definitely not considering who you could imagine is singing this song. Yeah.
Yeah, right. We don't get that perspective. Like in the Batman soundtrack album, we were given the luxury of it saying things like, this song is sung from the perspective of this character. I don't believe 200 Balloons, because it was a B-side, had that listed there, like sung from the perspective of the Joker or sung from the perspective of Bruce Wayne. But we can probably deduce that this, because Trust was sung by the Joker, according to the album's credits. So if this was the original version of that, what was going to be there where Trust was, you can deduce that this would have been a Joker song.
Right. I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
If anybody disagrees, then you'd have to give me some good evidence.
We need
show me your work.
Bring the receipts. We want to see it.
Exactly. wave your hand if you want to party tonight. Come on, everybody, 200 balloons. So we're just, again, in this whole party atmosphere, and these are just lines to represent that.
Yeah. It's a party song. It's, a fun thing. So digging too deep is in being too deep.
Yep, we're plugging along.
Yeah.
We're plugging along.
Yeah, we are.
And which is fine.
This may be our shortest episode yet.
Let's see what we can uncover here later in the song.
Yes.
Everybody singing, fly with me. Let's do it. Come on, baby, fly with me. Let's do it. Fly with me. Let's do it. Come on, baby, fly with me. I'll buy you love if I got 200 balloons. So that's essentially the chorus. Pretty straightforward. Fly with me. A lot of analogies. Balloons and flying. Come fly with me. Also, likely meaning come with me. Come join me. Not literally fly up in the air with me, but again, the song uses a lot of metaphors. So in this case, I mean, fly with me is kind of like ride with me, come with me,
right?
However you want to think about it. Basically, he's trying to galvanize his crew, galvanize the Gotham City residents to join him.
Yeah.
And that's one way of doing it, is throwing a party and telling people to come fly with me.
Yeah, just get them all out there in the street so you can unleash the poison on them, and no better way to get anybody out there than throwing money.
Yeah, the "I'll buy you love" part is the "I'll buy you love" part is the key, I think, takeaway from the chorus, is because he's literally, in the movie, the Joker's throwing money, so he's trying to literally buy people's affection and attention and loyalty.
Adoration.
Yeah, adoration, great. And I'll buy you love if I got 200 balloons. Let's do it. Tell me that you love me, and I'll buy you a fancy car. I made you a couple of times, so you made me a star. So take me for what I'm worth, love me for what I are, the party man. I'll take you way far. Come on, y'all, 200 balloons. Then they got the repeat of the who's gonna stop 200 balloons? Nobody. Let's do it. And that's repeated again. Okay, so more references to parties here, right? So we've got the reference to the party man now. So again, clear example of how this is interpreted as a Joker song, because the Joker is the party man. Here he's referring to himself as the party man. The party man will take you way far. Yeah. Definitely, that was an alias of the Joker that Prince had created for the soundtrack with the song Party Man. Anything in here that you wanted to touch on or talk about?
This line, I made you a couple of times, and so you made me a star. This has been I've been thinking about this for a couple of days now. And I honestly, and I always hate to admit, I don't know what to make of it. Mm-hmm. I don't know what to make of it. I watched this movie last night. I don't know what to make of that particular line.
Yeah, it's a bit confounding because, then that doesn't really happen in the film.
Yeah.
Like, the Joker never, because, again, you have to kind of assume that the use of the word made here in the I made you a couple times is basically had a sexual relationship with you. I had sex with you a couple of times. To make you is another term for having sex with somebody. I made you a couple of times, so you made me a star. So it seems like there's some sort of mutually beneficial thing going on there. Like, I'll do you good if you make me a star, but then that doesn't really ever happen. That never materializes in the film. So I think it's just something Prince made up, because there's nothing to indicate in here that, that has occurred where somebody exchanged, sex for stardom.
Yeah.
From a literal standpoint. Now, the Joker could be perceived as being that kind of a person where he would exchange something for something else, like a tit for tat type of situation. Scratch my back, I scratch yours. And, but also then here, scratch my back. I promise to scratch yours. And then, of course, never doing that.
That never happens, right?
And he's evil. What this little phrase here, because it is a bit confusing, all I kind of get into it, or all I kind of take away from it, I should say, is that there's the implication of some sort of mutually beneficial relationship going on between the subject of the song, which I guess is the Joker, and somebody else, whether it's the people of Gotham City. Like if we say, if I made you a couple of times, and we don't think it means sex, we think it could also be a metaphor for, I gave you some things,
like
I gave you money,
created you.
Yeah, or in the case of certain people within his crew, he created them, he turned them into his henchmen, and so there's different ways that you can interpret the term or the phrase "I made you a couple of times." And
could he have maybe been talking to Batman? That's a question. Could he have been talking to him? Because when we get to the end, there's a point where he says, I made you. No, you made me, and then I made you. So, could that possibly be? I mean, I know that's like going real deep, but it's just been on my mind for so many days. But I wonder if that's it, because the more that Batman, has to deal with the Joker, the more infamous he becomes. Yeah. So, could it possibly be that that's what the line? I don't know.
I do like that a lot. And I think that there's some validity to it, because the Joker is definitely not a low-key criminal, right? I mean, he's he goes on TV in one scene, he's like joking around, like literally Joker, he's the Joker. So he's on TV making jokes, getting people's attention. So he's definitely drawing attention to himself throughout the film. He's not one of those, mob people that are just all beneath the surface and trying to do everything, without being noticed. He's definitely all about being noticed, and he's all about the spectacle of his criminal activities. Yeah. So, for him to say, and I'm a star, you made me a star, could definitely mean Batman made him a star by, responding to his threats. Because people are interested in Batman, so they're going to be interested in whoever Batman's after by default.
Yeah, and he's the bad guy, sure. So yeah,
I like that a lot. Good one.
Yeah, thank you.
And came up with
we
some.
We did get a little bit deep.
A little bit deep, coming up with some meaning that I don't think either of us had before we started talking.
Yeah,
it's always nice.
Consider that.
So take me for what I'm worth and love me for what I are. That's just kind of like it. Take me for what I'm worth is a way to interpret, I guess, just take me for what I'm worth, meaning like, we know what that means if we're not talking Batman. That's somebody who has to, or is just being kind of drained of their own personal resources, whether that's money or whether that's love or, time, whatever it is that they're giving. People can drain that out of you without them even realizing it, or sometimes it's intentional.
Right.
And, just love me for what I are is also kind of a very straightforward line, but I guess those can be interpreted as a few different, maybe a couple different things if you're looking at it from the Joker's perspective. So,
like pretty much what you see is what you get. So you're gonna have to love it.
Yep, love me for who I am, and the people of Gotham City love me for being a criminal and somebody who's dangerous, but also gives them money when they want, potentially. I don't really know what they get out of the Joker, besides scare tactics and potential death, but maybe they see something in him that is exciting, because he's so personable, he's so charismatic, and maybe they see things in the Joker that they like, even if they have to look past a lot of really bad stuff. Which
a lot of people like the bad guy. A lot of people root for the bad guy.
There has been bad guys that have been elected to our office, highest office. So and people always pointed at
a lot of people like them.
Pointed at the charisma that some of these politicians have, and have to look past some of, or many of their flaws, and they still are loved and beloved.
Unfortunately. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm the one who brought it up, but I just, I think of people who have to look past, and you can actually don't have to even think of it from politicians. There's a lot of public figures, celebrities that maybe have kind of messy backgrounds, messy pasts or presents that people
just
are able to look past because they like what they do. They like the end result of what they do. So
just separating the art from the artist kind of thing.
Yes.
People have the ability. I do not have that ability, but I know many people have the ability to do that.
Yeah, and maybe in the case of the Joker, it's separating the crime from the criminal. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, charisma wins a lot of times.
Joker, you're the greatest, even though you just murdered 10 people.
You tried to kill us, but we love you.
Love you anyway, man. You're the party, man.
Love you for what you are.
Yeah. Okay, so then I think we would consider probably this more like an interlude. So it's party time, y'all, 200 balloons, don't stop me now, poets, life has just begun, raven to the joy, y'all, the only one, don't try to stop us, fly with me, yeah, fly with me, come on, fly with me, it's party time, 200 balloons. I mean, I think you and I probably have the same kind of like key line out of here, and that's the whole raven to the joy, y'all.
Yep.
Because in the context of 1989, there's really nothing, we haven't heard that phrase before.
Right.
And we wouldn't hear that phrase officially for another 10 years.
Yeah.
But very obviously, in history has shown us, Prince was working on the Raven to the Joy Fantastic project right before he was...
89. Yeah.
Yeah, right before he was began participation and began work on Batman. So that would have been his next album after Lovesexy if Batman hadn't come around. So we had to, pause all of that work and the songs that he had written for that, including the title track, Raven to the Joy Fantastic. And that is a song that has never officially, the 88-ish, I think is when he recorded, version of Raven to the Joy Fantastic, that's never officially been released by the Prince estate, but there's been versions of that song floating around forever. So it's not that hard to find if you look for it, if you want to hear the original Raven to the Joy Fantastic, or you could just listen to the 1999 official version that came out on the album. But nevertheless, so that's a phrase that Prince had coined around this time, and he's like, well, damn it, I'm not going to release this song in 1989 now. But
let me give him a little teaser.
Let me give him a little teaser. Yes, I like this phrase. Like, it's something that he created. So he has these phrases that he comes up with, and he'll use them for a little bit because he likes them, or just thinks they're clever, or they have meaning, deep meaning to him, and is where he is in his life at that time. And for me, Raven to the Joy Fantastic has always kind of been like the party to end all parties, the party until the end of time. I don't know if that's even right, because I haven't really crossed the Raven to the Joy Fantastic bridge yet, but that's how I've always interpreted that song to me, like a party right before the end of the world. I don't know if that's right or not, but that's kind of how I always attach.
It's here, though. I mean, it's a party. And
exactly. So it fits. It fits absolutely.
It fits, yeah. But there we are. There we got a little teaser and something that he probably said or something that he believed for himself. And some people have that kind of thing. I have a very dear friend who's an incredible writer who always says snatch joy for as long. I've probably known him 20 years. And he always says that. It's his email signature. It's anytime you speak to him, at some point, he is going to encourage you to snatch joy. So I always look at it in the same way. Yeah, snatch joy. You just take it. Don't wait for it.
Yeah, I think the closest Prince had probably was Welcome, or May You Live to See the Dawn. Yeah. He used that for quite a long time before Welcome to the Dawn came across. So like something like Rave, that came and went fairly quickly. And maybe the rave here is more of a spiritual awakening or a spiritual party before, Armageddon or the end of the world. I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, we're not here to dissect the lyrics to Rave into the Joy Fantastic, but
Yet.
not yet, but I do think it's interesting that he put it in there.
Yeah.
Don't try to stop us. Again, I like that because it just feels like there's a lot of momentum happening in this song. Like there's party, 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 but also we've got like we're partying for a reason. And I think Prince tries to inject a little bit of reason into why there's this big party going on that he's been talking about in the first 3 verses, and could be tied to that rave into the Joy Fantastic. Don't try to stop us, because it comes like right after it. The only one. Don't try to stop us.
We always got to get that little moment from him.
Yeah, we got to get that little kind of spiritual glimpse out of Prince, definitely. Even when he's not writing songs for a spiritual project.
Yes.
That was the Prince way. Inject your own philosophies into songs that don't necessarily need it on the surface.
Well, we love that about him.
Oh, yeah. It makes it fascinating to dissect 30
when you just
30
have
years
to pause
later.
And figure that one little moment out in something that's just, that we already said at the top was literal. So now there's the moment where it might not be so. Not so literal.
Exactly. And the poet's life has just begun line that goes right before Rave into the Joy, y'all. So poets, don't stop me now. Poet's life has just begun. Rave into the Joy, y'all. The only one. Don't try to stop us. I feel like those lines are more interesting than basically anything that has come prior to them, because they are much more cryptic, and they do probably, and I say probably because I don't know, I wasn't Prince, but they probably have some deeper spiritual meaning to Prince when he was writing them. So it's like Prince was, again, fulfilling an obligation to write music for this soundtrack, for this film, and I say that he was given an assignment. I feel like this is where he's putting in the extra credit. Like I completed the assignment, but I also, hey, Mr. Burton, I'm giving you some extra credit. And he's like, okay, I didn't ask for that, but
but here's a little lagniappe. Here's a little lagniappe for y'all.
Or maybe the extra credits for the listeners, which is probably more accurate. He probably didn't care at all.
I don't think he cared one bit what Tim Burton Burton thought, but for the rest of us.
Or for himself, minimally for himself.
Yeah.
So then after that is just kind of a lot of the same, or coming up right after that is more of the same kind of phrases. 200 balloons, let's do it, fly with me. So we get a lot of that again. He throws some things in like, hey, it's been good, fly, fly, fly with me. And then you hear a sample, get your house in order. I've already talked about this in a previous episode because that house sample was used also in Batdance. Here it's a little longer, get your house in order, versus just the word house. So I guess it probably makes just as much sense to talk just very briefly about this sample, likely having come from Mavis Staples, who Prince was recording music with at around the same time. This song ended up being ultimately released a few years later, but it seems the most logical conclusion one could make is it was a song recorded back in the 80s. Prince sampled it and then chopped up that sample even smaller for Batdance. But we get more of a full get your house in order sample here in 200 balloons. Turn your head to the east, I'll be coming from the west. Ain't no stopping me, baby, because I'm the best. Cry, cry, I love it when you moan. This funk will cut so deep, gonna touch your soul. My funk is multi-layered, don't stop me now. I got my fever pumping, don't stop me now. I make love to you 8 days from sea to sea. Got a warehouse full of protection, 3 times, good Lord. I want to be your busy bee. I'll be your busy bee. Okay, so he's just like riffing here, I think, just kind of saying stuff to say stuff. Because again, nothing here you could apply to the film at all. It's like
Right.
he did his thing. Like I gave you 3 verses of lyrics that you can be interpreted as matching what the film is. But I got like another minute or two of music I want to fill with something. I don't want to just outro it with just the beat again and some samples. So I'm going to throw some crazy Prince shit in here, and this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. This is like hold my coat.
Yep.
Now I'm going to just do what I want to do right in this part. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't even know. Again, I struggle with these types, like when it gets to this parts of certain songs, because are these really lyrics? I don't know. I mean, they're words that he's saying, so you could
good ad libs.
consider them lyrics. But if they're ad libs, then how much stock do you put in an ad lib? Unless there's something like really funny or interesting or kind of revelatory in some of these ad libs, or if there's a connection to be made. But I don't think we need to dissect ad libs per se.
Yeah.
It's just that's what it feels to me is more or less ad libs. He throws in some sexuality.
House in order part. Yeah, which is what throws me. To get your house in order, which is very much a spiritual thing. Getting your house in order so that you can be prepared for the second coming. And because of who he was, it's difficult for me to not imagine that he may have thrown just that little moment in there. You might that it might stick. That might, and it did for me. It stood out. So does it stand out for people in that way, or is it just kind of ad lib stuff? That people just really don't pay a lot of attention to.
Well, I think that because it's coming from a different voice, it stands out to me as well. So whenever you have like Prince singing, but then he throws in somebody else's voice, whether it's a live voice like Rosie Gaines or whomever, Jill Jones, or in this case a sample, what we believe is a sample from Mavis Staples, it sticks out, right? So I think it's smart if he really intended that phrase, "Get your house in order," to be heard from the listeners of this song. It was smart of him to use somebody else's voice to say it, to kind of stand out from the rest of what he was doing at this part of the song.
For sure, yeah.
The "I got a warehouse full of protection" line is just funny. I mean,
2 times.
It's just funny.
Yeah.
It's like, great. I mean, that's wonderful news.
A warehouse full.
I mean, we knew he was very much into safe sex, but
wow.
Especially around this time. Like I know there's a song coming up from the B-side of Scandalous called "Sex," and that song speaks a bit about having a monogamous relationship and practicing safe sex. So this was something that was on Prince's mind around this time. You kind of wonder, like, what happened? Did he have a pregnancy scare? Did he have an STD scare? Or was it just because it was in the environment at the time, like the HIV really being a concern for people in the late 80s, because it was really, people were dying left and right from it. So you just kind of wonder what was like the source of these themes that he was expressing about safe sex. Whatever, we'll never know, but it just makes you wonder, like, what was going on at this time? Did he have some situation
in his life,
where
what was happening
in his life? Exactly. That kind of like had a wake-up call for him that he needed to start preaching this. I don't know. But he was definitely into, talking about it and making sure that he expressed that, hey, I might be very sexual, and I make sexual songs, and but I also want to be responsible, and I want you to be responsible as well. So maybe take after me and use me as your motivator, or
be very sexual, but also be protected.
Exactly.
I absolutely love this song. I think it's just fun, and it was intended to be that. And I think that it's just that simple. Just on just on its face, it was just that, just meant to be something that was fun and thrown in. Here's the scene. Can you make something that works with it? Here you go.
Mm-hmm. I do too. It's a song that I listen to. I don't listen to it a ton, I'll be honest, but I never like turn it off when it's on, or
Yeah.
if I'm like listening to the B-sides, like I have all the B-sides and I'm just like listening to them in order or even like shuffled, I don't ever think, 200 balloons. Wish I could skip
let
this.
me skip that one. Right.
So it's not a
I think
go-to.
this is definitely this isn't the one that you're looking for, but you're also not passing it up when you get to it.
Yeah, so I'm not mad at Tim Burton for asking Prince if he could come up with something else, because I like Trust better, to be honest.
Yeah.
I ain't mad at him for that.
Too. Yeah.
All right, well, that's 200 balloons in a nutshell. We covered it. Is there anything that you want to tell the listeners about where to find you on social media at all?
I'm on Twitter, just running my mouth over there a lot of times. You can find me. I am at Melanin Monroe or Angel Monique, either one of those. Nothing else too much is going on right now for me because we're still in the process of rebuilding, and the bakery hasn't returned yet. So I'm just on social media, just causing trouble when I can, talking about Prince.
Rabble rouser.
That's me. That's what they call me.
We need more people like you, Angel. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I always appreciate your input. Hopefully you'll come back sometime.
I would love to. Thank you so much for having me, and for, I know we hadn't spoken about it, and I'd like to take a moment. I am recovering from COVID, and we have been doing a lot of back and forth about whether I sound ready, because I don't hear what everyone else hears. Everybody else is fine. I hear congestion, and I know that it's a weird space, and a lot of people don't like talking about it, and people have made it political. To me, it's just an issue of health and living, and as a person who struggles with long COVID and who nearly lost my life from it a couple of years ago and just had it again due to someone else being careless, I'm just going to encourage y'all to please be careful and take care of yourselves and take care of each other.
Agreed. I echo that sentiment. We all need to take care of each other this time, and we also all need to be cognizant of our actions may have consequences to people outside of our own circle. So please be aware and do your best to help your fellow man, woman, and child.
Absolutely. All we got.
This has been the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast. I've been your host, Jason Brenninger. You can find the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Just look for Press Rewind Pod or the Press Rewind podcast. You should be able to find it, no problem. Check me out on my blog, pressrewind.net, and also on Discord. So if you use Discord, you can find a link to the Discord server that I use in any of my social media handles. So enjoy the show, and until next time, goodbye.